I appeared on Piers
Proper
Morgan's show Uncensored, and it went a little bit off the rails where I literally at the end just walked off. And I'll get to that clip, but I think you're going to resonate with my irritation, which is we're in such an insane moment. We talked about at the beginning of the show, the Trump administration being so catastrophic in their actions in Minneapolis that even they had to give up and back off and end their ICE surge. We have Trump-appointed judges calling out the constitutional violations of the Trump administration. We have an authoritarian takeover out for all of us to see. Journalists being arrested, people being shot in the streets. And in that context, Piers Morgan decided to spend a bunch of time talking about, you guessed it, trans athletes. And so I ultimately get fed up and explain why I think this is not so much about a genuine care of the issue. And I'll engage thoughtfully with the issue, as you'll see here, but instead an effort to distract from a lot of other topics. And that's what leads to me getting kind of upset. But we'll build to that part, and then we'll go back and watch the clip of him asking me about the Olympians who spoke out against the Trump administration, and Piers didn't like that. I obviously supported it, and we talk about that as well. But let's start here. We're about 30 minutes into the debate, and he goes, well, we have more time. Let's talk about trans athletes again for the billionth time.
Luke, I want to bring David back in. I want to just switch gears to another story before we finish. And this is the ongoing story of transgender athletes in women's sport and the revelation or admission by Iman Khalif, the Algerian boxer who, of course, won an Olympic gold medal competing in women's boxing at the Paris Olympics, having been banned from the World Championships for having male chromosomes. In an interview with French magazine L'Equipe, Khalif has now admitted to having not just a female phenotype, but also the SRY gene, which is essentially the start button of male development. And she said, yes, and it's natural. I have female hormones. People don't know this, but I've already lowered my testosterone levels for competitions. But has resolutely so far refused to have a sex test and plans to defend the title in the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. She said, or he, whatever you want to call Iman Khalif, says for the next games, if I have to take a test, I will. I've no problem with that. But
just the quickest pause to request that you click the subscribe button, the simplest, easiest, freest way, completely free, to support the work that we do. Right below the video, click that subscribe button. Back to the video.
Surely the easiest way around this is just to take a sex test. If there's any doubt,
So this is not a story that I've kept up with. Shocker. I feel like I have a little bit of other more pressing things to focus on than a boxer in the Olympics. That just happens to be where I put my focus. Okay. But did he just say that she said she would take a sex test before the next competition? Is that not what he just said? And if that's true, what are we talking about? So that's kind of where I got to. I need us to quickly settle this conversation because I'm tired of it being used as a distraction agent. And let me see if I can pull back in the stuff Piers doesn't want to talk about. And that's what you're going to see come up later. The only reason I'm cutting off that clip is because he poses it to another guy. And you'll hear me get upset ultimately and describe them as jerking each other off, which is he posed the question to one of the panelists and they're like, yes, of course, this is, oh, what an outrage, blah, blah, blah. And then Piers says, oh, what, and they're just, no one's even, there's no disagreement. Everyone's just, so you don't need to see that. Everyone's just going, yes, take the sex test, shouldn't have biological, people born biological male. But I think with the whole question with Khalif is that maybe that's not the case, or was biologically female, or maybe there's some biological ambiguity. Again, not something I keep up with at all. But here is where I get to ask the question.
A cultural state.
Oh, no. Actually, okay, sorry. Apologies. Before we circle back to that topic, this panelist you're seeing who's next to me takes his response to the trans question back to the Olympian question. So that's where I first get to jump in on this topic, which is him saying, and you're going to hear him say it and then deny that he said it, that somehow Olympians speaking out against the actions of the Trump administration connects to a degradation of our system, of our country. And that's when I jumped and went, what?
I think it was Dolly Parton who said, I don't touch on hot button issues because when I do, half the people will hate me and the other half thought that I already agreed with them. And so this idea that this new age mentality that we always have to speak out, I do think that that's wrong. And as far as, when it comes to America, specifically at the Olympic Games, I do take issue with the fact that America's imperfections are being used as reasoning for ripping down the entire foundation of our civilization. There is no nation, there is no community which is absolutely perfect. So of course you could critique it, but it seems like America is a country so great, even the people who hate it won't leave.
So I'm going to pause there and then you're going to see my response. Hold on to what he said. Everyone, just bookmark what he just said, because he just, for some reason, took the answer to the trans thing back to the Olympian thing about whether or not athletes should be speaking out publicly about politics. My argument is on something that's important with what the Trump administration is currently doing. Yeah, I think they should, if they want to. And then he says the idea that all of them feel like you got to speak out against the imperfections is wrong and is contributing to some degrading of our country, right? That's what we just heard. Because then I'm going to dispute that, and then later he's going to say that's not what he said. Wait, you're saying...
Luke Beasley, you're shaking your head there. Why?
Yeah, you're saying people criticizing the Trump government is causing the foundation of our society to collapse. I would say him violating a bunch of constitutional principles is way more degrading to the foundation of our system. Him going after media outlets that he doesn't like, locking up journalists, people being killed in the streets and then smeared afterwards. His actions in degrading by turning the DOJ into just a political weapon, and on and on and on we go. That's what's degrading the foundation of our system. I think people calling that out is the most American thing ever. And I see that as us trying to correct
this issue is so much bigger than just one administration. Again, we're going as far back as talking about Michael Jordan in the 90s. We're talking about Muhammad Ali in the 60s. This is so much bigger than just one single administration. Quite frankly, I don't think it would matter who is in the office right now.
Wait, but how?
We are pressuring so many athletes to speak out. If you don't speak out on whatever the imperfection is, again, not administration, but whatever there is imperfect about America as a system, if you don't do it, it means you don't care. I think that is unfair.
That's a different claim. I totally agree. If you don't want to speak out, you don't need to speak out, and people can react however they like. You made a claim that sounded like if people choose to speak out, or if there's a culture of calling out what is this insane authoritarianism that we're witnessing, then that itself is a degrading agent to the foundation of our society.
Not at all.
That is what you laid out. Okay, cool.
No, that's why I mentioned
So I was like, okay, well then I don't. If you're just saying people shouldn't be forced to speak out, true. But we're talking about people who chose to speak out, and we all watched the same clip. He connected the Olympians speaking out to the idea of a societal collapse through constant fixation on the imperfections of America. By the way, being patriotic and always obsessing over the imperfections are not mutually exclusive. I want to be patriotic for the things that do exhibit values I agree with America, and all these reasons that I believe America is very special and very amazing. And then just staring at that list and going is not doing anything to make the country better. So then I try to look more at the list of things that are wrong so we can add more to the good list. Seems rational to me. But then since he immediately goes, no, that's what I was saying, I was like, okay, well, cool. Then I guess I don't have any problem. And then this is where Piers goes, wait. We spoke for 4 minutes, not about trans athletes. Come back to it.
Hang on. Luke, on the separate issue of transgender athletes in women's sport.
Yes.
What is your view of that?
Do whatever is going to keep fairness and transports this and transports that. Got it. Good.
Well, no, what is your view, though? Should they be allowed to compete?
Take the sex test, damn it.
Well, why not?
No, I said take it.
No, but what do you actually believe?
Guys, I broke him. Broke Piers Morgan. What the hell? What the hell happened to Piers Morgan?
Fuck of shit.
Why did he say why not when I said yes? If there's some confusion about a boxer's biology and there's reason to believe they're going to have a outsized competitive edge because of going through biological male puberty or something, then sure, take a sex test. I don't know. What restrictions do they have around that? And that's my broader take is like, I'm not an expert on what restrictions need to be in place to ensure fairness in which sports. And I don't think like some middle school kid who wants to play basketball with their friends should be targeted because they're trans. In high level leagues, I'm totally great with them adding restrictions, whether it be you have to transition to a certain period, like you have to transition far enough where all your competitive edge is gone, or there's an outright restriction based on biology. Okay, cool. Like this is not a thing that I'm constantly spinning around about. Cool. And me saying that, like, made him glitch out. Watch again. I go, okay, take the sex test then. If there's some big controversy, take the sex test. Let's see. And he goes, why not? I said, yes.
Though, should they
take
be allowed
the sex
to compete?
test, damn it.
Well, why not?
No, I said take it.
No, but what do you actually believe?
I believe that. I'm agreeing with you. Take the sex test.
So just to be clear, you think that transgender women should not be allowed to compete in women's sport, or?
I mean, yeah, I think that would be fine if leagues decide to add that restriction. And then if you have a certain way that if you transition this far, their advantage goes away, I'm fine with that too. Whatever is going to allow for the most fairness is good with me.
Okay, I mean, Joey Barton, it seems to me we're going to look back at this period in history.
Wait.
And
Piers,
people will think we lost our minds about this issue.
Before you go. He only has one hammer. Guys, this is my point about why sort of liberal advocates I think should have a little bit more of a clear answer on this, is because if they don't have the wrestle over it, they don't really know where to go next. He goes, people are probably going to think that we're crazy when they look back at history. Based on what that I said, you literally didn't know what to do when I just said, sure. Because we all understand if you had certain like biologically male advantages in certain sports, then that could give you an outsized edge and cause bad things. And so we can both, especially with younger athletes, respect people's identity and not allow for discriminatory behavior and protect fairness in high level leagues. That's fine. And I think people who know more about at what points, based on which hormones or whatever, you lose advantages, can also implement more hyper-specific rules that chart that, or maybe there's more of a blanket rule in certain sports. Like, do it. And that's already what they're doing. That's already what leagues are doing. So it's not even something we have to debate about. This doesn't have to do anything to do with public policy, which is what we're supposed to be focusing on. And it shows that it's just a culture war thing for him when I give that answer and he doesn't really know what to do with it. So then they go on. So we haven't gotten to the part where I get heated yet. So just wait. They go on and on and on and on about, oh, isn't it so wild that how could we be in this world where everything's so wacky and people don't know what a woman and a man and man. And that's where I go, all right, guys, this is dumb.
So that's our prime minister. Yeah, we had our second in command, David Lammy, say men can grow a cervix or something. So, it's crazy times, no doubt that the future generations will look back at us and realise that we did lose our minds.
Let me jump in real quick.
We had people putting masks on whilst they were driving alone in a car. It was
Luke, you want to jump in there?
Strange time for humanity.
What are we doing, people? We have an assault on our democratic republic like we haven't seen in generations. And we're still talking, we're just like jerking each other off right now, talking about how, oh my gosh, some statements people have made about what is a woman is kind of irrational. Okay, cool, good. We've established that point. People should be more clear about the difference between biological sex and your gender identity. We should have fairness in sports. Good. And now let's get back to the people you said someone could die. You know what we're going to wait, but you know what we're going to look back on when we look at this moment in history? We're going to think about how ridiculous it was that people were blowing out of proportion random culture war issues instead of talking about the people who are actually dying, not the potential the people who are actually dying at the hands of our government as people with masks are roaming our streets and ripping citizens out of their cars. And we're talking about, for 30 minutes, we're talking about how should people speak out at sporting events or not, and then trans sports. mind-bending. And just to be clear, again, sometimes in the debate, my broader nuanced take, I think, can get a little bit squeezed down. It is super important that we advocate for the dignity of trans people while also having a perfectly rational take on the question around sports leagues and how to make sure that there's no fairness issues. Both of those are important. It's not about going, oh, advocacy for people is a tiny issue. It's not that. It's that we know what they're doing, hyperfixating on this. And maybe giving the take I did helps to shut down the conversation a little quicker, but they kept the conversation going. So it's not even like it worked. They kept going with it and just going, yeah, oh, wow, everyone's crazy now. Woke has gone crazy. And not accomplishing anything and not talking about the things that are impacting all of us right now in the pressing, urgent matter. So I just want to be clear that this is not me going, discard a group of people who should be advocated for, or discard an issue that does have some complicated elements to it. It's just trying to put into context what Piers is obsessing over this for, while also being straightforward, not doing the squirrely thing, and giving a straightforward take on the actual question that he had.
So you're taking people out of your country and bumping into your country?
Let Matthew respond to that.
Sorry,
the
what's so mad about
tragedy
that?
is that people who don't recognise the absolute outrage about woke overreach and dismiss.
I already told you I disagree with woke overreach. What are we doing?
As culture war trivia, look at the campaign slogan that Trump pumped out relentlessly in the last month of the last presidential election. Kamala is for they, them. Trump is for you. I don't like Trump at all. Most of my columns absolutely despise the drift towards authoritarianism. But the reason Trump had the platform, the reason he won the election, is because of these culture war issues. A huge number of people in America were completely appalled by the pronouns.
I agree with you,
men competing in women's sport. So don't dismiss this. Talking about it is very important because it is the impetus behind the drift that we're seeing.
Okay, so now that we've established we agree on that, isn't it, especially with, and then I'll play the rest of this, to be clear, I agree the culture wars and the demonization or fixation on certain people or groups, regardless of their relevance to the broader population, regardless of the reasons why people have an intention of focusing on those things, did have a big impact in the 2024 election. My point is, why do you think it had such a big impact? Why do you think an ad that said, Kamala's for they, them, Trump is for you, had such a big impact when we all know that's a silly campaign ad? That doesn't talk at all about Trump's substantive policies to benefit people's lives of all different identities. And you know why? Because people like Piers Morgan would throw a bunch of fuel on those fires. No, you are irrational if you're voting for an open authoritarian with a terrible economic policy who's going to rip away your health care, but because you got irritated about they, them. You are irrational for that. Is that fair? Your life is being made worse and your health care is being taken away and your neighbors are being targeted because they, them was a confusing concept. Or because people got a little bit irritating with discussions around pronouns.
No more dudes in dresses.
And at some point, we need to treat people like adults and talk about issues that are universally impactful. Okay.
A huge number of people in America were completely appalled by the pronouns.
I agree with you,
men competing in women's sport. So don't dismiss this. Talking about it is very important because it is the impetus behind the drift that we're seeing.
Okay, so now that we've established we agree on that, isn't it, especially within the context of Olympians speaking out, as we were talking about before, would you not agree that people overemphasizing things, it's not that you shouldn't talk about them, it's that putting overemphasis as to distract from, like you talked about in the 2024 campaign. Do you know why it was so important for Trump to scare people about an issue that most likely wasn't going to affect them? Kamala's for they, them, and you play some clip where she has already tried to clarify that she didn't mean trans prisoner, blah, blah, blah. That was so necessary for his campaign. It's because if Americans weren't so distracted by certain programs to focus on those types of issues so much, not that they shouldn't at all, but so much, if they can get them to focus on that, if they were focusing on the more important issues, there's no way they would have supported Trump, who we knew before the election was going to do all of this. It was his plan. He specified it. His economic agenda was looked at by a bunch of economists, completely incoherent. This is bad.
The problem, Luke.
You're the problem, Piers.
Luke. Here's the problem.
Just kidding. Love you.
Is that you had 4 years of Donald Trump, and people like you were shouting away for 4 years about how he's the new Hitler, blah 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 blah.
I never said that.
Then you had 4 years without. Well, then you had 4 years without Trump, and after 4 years without Trump, more of you in America voted for Trump to come back than voted for him originally. So whilst you may not like it, and it's very clear that you have a very clear idea of the issues that are important to you, actually they weren't shared by a majority of your fellow Americans at the last election.
Actually, Trump didn't win a majority. He won more than Kamala, but not a majority. But whatever. I get your point. And why are you bringing that up? Like, think about this. I just made a very clear point. Maybe if we talked more about the things that were pressing, urgent, highly consequential matters, as opposed to being irritated with pronoun discussions, maybe we wouldn't find ourselves here. And his response is, but more people voted for Trump than Kamala. I know. That's what I'm trying to diagnose.
They weren't shared by a majority of your fellow Americans at the last election. They cared about other things, including the absurd woke agenda, including immigration, including foreign wars and so on. You may not like it or agree with it, but you are one of the reasons Donald Trump got re-elected.
Well, guess what?
You were fighting that front,
you might not like
and everybody else was talking about that front.
Listen, more Americans believe Biden now, based on recent polls, was doing better as president than Trump currently is. So Americans realize,
Biden was a zombie.
I was right, and you were wrong.
Biden was a zombie.
Senile.
Well, you didn't respond to what I said. Polling reveals Americans are feeling that I was right and you were wrong. They actually are regretful over electing Trump, and it would have helped to prevent that situation.
So I'm not expressed a view about whether it was right or wrong. I'm not American.
I believe on this subject.
What I do know is what I do know, Luke, hang on. What I do know is that the left in America, for 3 years of Biden's 4 years in power, lied to themselves and to the world about the cognitive disrepair of their leader. The guy was gaga by the end. And the fact that he was even contemplating running again was an insult to democracy of the kind you should abhor. But you don't, because it was your guy. And that's part of the problem with the way that politics is done in America.
Show, Piers?
If it's your guy, it's fine. If it's the other guy...
He just has, like, pre-baked talking points. How does that... Literally think about what we brought up. We brought up Olympians speaking about politics. I said... I think it's patriotic that they're speaking about politics. Even you might not like it, that's okay. Then we talk about trans sports. I say, here's my take on it. And second point, after addressing your question very clearly, which caused you to glitch out because you didn't understand that liberals can say that. Then I'm trying to emphasize that we could have had more substantive conversations in the lead up to the election that maybe would have changed the outcome. And you start ranting at me about how I called Trump Hitler, never happened, about how Biden was senile, and about how the wokesters caused Trump to win the election. What the hell? What the hell does that have to do with what I'm saying? Fine. It's fine if you wanted to criticize Biden's age. Cool. Didn't address my question.
You're the sucker. You're the loser.
Hey, dude. I try not to be. Hey.
Boom. That's the problem. Anyway, fascinating debate.
By the way,
I've made my final statement. The beauty of having my own show is I can make a final statement and not invite anyone to respond. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it. And Matthew, all I'd say to you as a Brentford fan is that by the time this airs on Friday, it may be you wished you'd been talking about politics on Thursday night because you're playing Arsenal and we're going to absolutely batter you. And yes, this will age well. So, guys, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. We've lost Luke. He's gone.
Yeah. I walked off because they're talking about Arsenal. Sorry, we don't have time, Luke, for you to respond to my 15 points I just made, but we do have time to talk about soccer. Or football, excuse me. And how you're gonna batter whatever the other team's name was. You serious? Are you kidding me? You don't have, okay. So that's why I walked out, because I was irritated, because I feel like there's a certain debate courtesy that if you're going to make a gazillion points and the other person clearly doesn't think you're addressing their argument, that you at least let them give a final thought. I had a great final thought too. I was going to go like this. Everything you just said was a crock of shit.
Crock of shit.
No. I was just going to say, I agree that bad, toxic advocacy from some people on the left alienated voters in some way. Mostly the election was an economic one, and despite Biden's administration actually handling the pandemic era economic conditions pretty darn well, there was a global backlash to incumbents because of price surges that were happening globally and being handled better in the United States because of pandemic era conditions. But it definitely didn't help that broadcasters and grifters like Piers Morgan spent more time complimenting Trump's McDonald's apron whenever he went and served at a McDonald's than talking about Trump's economic plan or his statements against critical American principles of democracy. And then everyone would have gone, whoa, you're so right. If he had let me talk, everyone would go, this guy is so brilliant. But I didn't get a chance, Jaden. Okay. All right. And then I told you I was going to circle back to the original question I was asked about should athletes mix their being an athlete celebrity with politics. And my answer is you're going to like it whenever they say something you like, and you're going to not like it when they say something you don't like. So don't pretend like you have a principle that athletes or celebrities should never talk about politics, because sometimes you're going to like it. And Piers was trying to do the thing of, it's not that I necessarily disagree with what the Winter Olympians have been saying about not representing every aspect of what's currently going on in the United States, but just I don't think that is their place. I don't think they should speak about that on the world stage. And so then he plays me clips and gets my reaction. Take a look.
Interesting point. Let me bring in Luke Beasley. I want to play a mashup of the Team USA athletes getting political at these Winter Olympics, so the viewers who haven't seen it can see it in the proper context.
I'm really hoping to show up and represent my own values of inclusivity, values of diversity and kindness and sharing.
It brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough time in our country right now, and I think I just continue to represent my values.
Just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S.
It's been a hard time for the community overall under this administration.
I think that as a country, we need to focus on respecting everybody's rights and making sure that we're treating our citizens as well as anybody with love and respect.
To Luke Beasley, what do you make of that?
Yeah, those are patriots. That is so incredible that they chose to say that. As was referenced, some of them I think got asked, or maybe all of them, and maybe were encouraged to share their view. But we all, I'm American. Americans just watched, the world just watched the president come out in his administration and lie about people who had been shot during protests. To me, I'm a little bit disoriented by this conversation, because it's like all of this thought and stress, and you're referencing, I guess some people out there are upset that they're speaking out. To me, I wish that outrage was channeled at the reasons that they feel the need on the world stage to speak out. But I will say a lot of people are misrepresenting what they're saying. It cracks me up because some of them go, I just think we should represent love and kindness and compassion, to which MAGA reacts, they must be attacking us, which no one even named Trump, it didn't sound like, but was just speaking about the moment of division, and then in many people's views, including mine, an authoritarian shift in the United States. And to use your platform to do the most American thing in the world, which is represent your country and your people while being critical of your government, to me is the height of patriotism. And last thing, I do agree.
But how would you feel? Okay,
a lot of people
how would you feel?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, but Luke, how would you feel if it was a conservative voting athlete at the Summer Olympics during the Biden administration?
Okay, then he goes on to ask that question for so long, referencing something else. So let me just skip forward because I'm playing so many of these clips. Here's him finally getting to the end of that question.
if it was a conservative voting athlete whacking Biden, for example.
Okay, hear this out, okay? I would not like it because they would be wrong, and what is being said by the Olympians now is correct. But the reason that I wouldn't like it is not because I don't support the fact that people can and even should, in many cases, if they feel compelled, use their platform and their influence to advocate for what they believe in. So actually, you can't go find any clips of me being like, shut up and dribble, or people shouldn't talk about politics in this space or that space. I agree we're all a little bit tired with everything being politicized, but in a sense, it's kind of one of those moments where you're called to. So for me, I am morally consistent on this because I think you absolutely have that right. The reason that I'm critical of Nicki Minaj, for example, is not because I think she should just stick to music. It's just because I disagree with what she's saying. And so I'll criticize what she's saying and not the fact that she's saying something.
Okay, Joey Barton.
So then he moves on because I think he thought that he was going to get me in a sort of moral contradiction, and he had admitted, to his credit at the top of the segment, that he realizes he's a hypocrite on this because there have been cases where prominent celebrities or athletes spoke out on something and he really loved it, but then here he's trying to do the whole, I just have a principle that you should stay out of politics if you're an athlete. And so then my explanation there, and the reason I said it that way, of I wouldn't like if someone got up at the Olympics and praised Trump or said, you know, Biden is a dictator. I would not like it because I would not like it. I wouldn't agree with it. Not because I wouldn't like that they're speaking up. I kind of appreciate knowing what people that I watch believe on different issues, even if it means I end up respecting them less. And my reference there, very prominently, Nicki Minaj has come out. My argument is never, just stick to music, Nicki. It's, all right, now you shared your view and I disagree with it and I respect you less. But a lot of people try to get out of substantively engaging with what celebrities are saying or what prominent athletes are saying by doing the shut up and dribble. It's easier to go, I'm not going to engage with what they're saying. I'm just saying they shouldn't even be saying anything about politics, than actually disputing what those Olympians said. Because again, it's a little weird how upset MAGA's getting whenever a lot of them are just going, I think we should respect everyone's rights and be kind. And MAGA's like, they must hate us, which is kind of a weird but we do understand what they're saying. They are speaking out against the administration, even if they don't name Trump, but it's pretty soft criticism. And so I think Piers Morgan doesn't feel so comfortable admitting that he doesn't like what they're saying because what they're saying is popular in the country. And instead he'll do maybe we should just stay out of politics. It's a cop-out. And he thought that I also would have been on the record going, I think, you know, who even is a celebrity who likes MAGA? I don't know. Whoever that, I'm going to do Kid Rock again. I can't remember. I just think Kid Rock should stick to music. I've never once said that. Maybe it's a joke, but I've never actually been saying, regardless of what he's saying, I just don't think he should make things political. It's just, I disagree with what he's saying. That's it. He can say it, disagree with it. And so then that's why I think Piers was like, oh, yeah, well, I guess I'll move on.